Hey you guys, this is not a normal setting for a Sunday pantry chat, but today we're going to be talking about one of my top favorite topics, and that's medicinal herbs. The cottage garden doesn't look like there's a lot going on, and we haven't even done the spring cleanup yet, so it's a bit of a wreck out here. But if you look closely, you can see that there's plants starting to pop up all over the place. All my medicinal herbs and flowers. I'm so excited, even some perennial greens and vegetables. So this is going to be a really exciting space in a few weeks, and it's just so exciting to see the snow go away and plants start popping out of the ground. If you are not growing medicinal herbs, this is a great year to start. You know, with an overwhelmed medical system, it means that things that you could normally get help for, maybe the help may be less accessible. And you know, honestly, as somebody who wants to help out the medical system to be able to care for people who are most in need, this is a great time to learn how to treat the more common illnesses or issues, health issues that you have at home, to be able to lessen the burden on that medical system. And herbs are a great way to do it. In fact, they're one of my favorite ways to do that. So one of the questions that I get asked most often is, which herbs should I grow in my garden? And if you have joined me for any of my live trainings on herbs, you'll know that my answer is the herbs that you need to treat the health problems that you have regularly in your family. But for some people, they don't even know where to start. They don't even know which herbs those would be. So I went ahead and put together a list of about 15 herbs that are easy to grow in a home garden setting, and between them they're going to cover a large majority of the basic health problems, the common illnesses, the things that households and families run into regularly, to be able to treat it, so that you have options in your yard to be able to treat them. Now, these herbs are in no way the only herbs that treat these issues. They're also, this list is like, you know, it's kind of like asking you to choose your favorite child, right? Like asking you to choose just a handful of herbs that treat things is kind of a hard thing to do. And that's because all the herbs are amazing and all of them are wonderful. So for this list, I just picked things that I really felt were accessible, easy to get either in seeds or maybe at a nursery to get starts. Things that are going to cover multiple health issues or give you a well-rounded coverage of different issues that you might experience. So please feel free to add herbs to your list, take them out, change it around. Again, this is not in any way a conclusive list. There's a lot more. Okay, so we're gonna start. Oh, and this is not in order of importance, because you know what? The most important herb for you to grow is the one that answers the health problem that you have most often. Nobody can tell you which herb is the most important or the best herb for you to grow for your family, because it's gonna be different for every family. So this is not in order of importance. And a lot of these herbs are perennial, which I just absolutely love. Not all of them, but a lot of them, because right now, I can't even put my earliest spring seeds in the ground. It's just too early here. And yet I already have perennial herbs and vegetables coming up all around me. That just tells you that I have done no work this spring. I haven't even gotten out here and cut down the old like sunflowers you can see back there that I left up for the birds to eat all winter. I haven't even come and done any of those types of chores, and these plants are already sprouting and growing all by themselves. Let me tell you, when life gets hard, having your garden just out there doing its thing, whether you show up or not, is an amazing, amazing thing, and something you'll be thankful for year after year. Okay, so let's get right to it. Herb number 1 on my list is peppermint. Peppermint, now some of you have to be really careful with peppermint because it can be invasive and it can spread. In some environments, it will just take over your whole garden. So you may want to grow peppermint in a container, but peppermint specifically, and peppermint, all of the mints have different actions in the body, medicinal actions. So that means peppermint's going to be a little different than spearmint. Peppermint is so incredibly useful. It's useful for stomach issues. It's useful for sinus issues. It's very useful for cooling, whether it's because internally you're getting really hot, maybe it's a hot summer day and you're working, a cup of peppermint iced tea can be a wonderful thing to do, but it's also cooling topically. That means if you have a sunburn, that can really help with the pain of it. Of course, it's a great flavoring for everything, right? I love peppermint. Not everybody does, but most people enjoy peppermint. So you'll probably find somebody, a friend that's going to come over, or somebody who enjoys getting to have that peppermint iced tea. It's also really powerful for headaches, helping with headaches, whether it's applied topically or internally taken. And another one that I know for me is really important because I struggle with motion sickness and I struggle with morning sickness when I'm pregnant, is that peppermint can help with motion sickness. I know ginger is what is really known for that, but oddly enough, ginger makes me feel sick to my stomach when I already have an upset stomach from motion sickness. And so peppermint is the thing that I grab for. Plus, it grows really well in my environment, whereas ginger I have to grow indoors. Okay, so plant number 2 is calendula. Now, calendula is an annual, but a lot of times it's a self-sowing annual. That means it will drop seeds in the spot that it's in and then come right back in that same spot next year. Calendula is such a wonderful plant, and this is really known and does a great job at covering all of the skin issues. If you have a rash, if you have something that's uncomfortable, if you have a wound, usually anything to do with skin is helped by calendula. It is even antifungal, so diaper rash is a great place to use that, or any fungal issues that you have topically. But you know, another really great use of calendula that we actually find ourselves using often in our house is that it's a lymph stimulant. That means if you have like swollen, achy lymph glands when you're sick, this is going to help move that along. So we'll take it as a tea. I can't say I love the flavor, but mixed into something else like peppermint, it can really help to move along lymph stagnation issues. It's also great as the insects love it for its flowers. So it's a wonderful pollinator plant, and it's wonderful for a dye, food dye, fabric dye, or just putting that pretty pop of color into some herbal tea that you're mixing up. It's just a wonderful thing for lots of uses around the house. So I really, really recommend getting calendula. Another great thing is it's super easy to save calendula seeds so that once you get it in the ground, you don't need to keep buying the seeds over and over again. Okay, the next one is bee balm. Now this goes by several different names. There's bee balm, there's bergamot. The technical name is monarda. And this is another plant. It's in the mint family, and it does have a tendency to spread and take over. So again, if you're in a climate where plants just go crazy, they just are gonna kind of become invasive, then you may want to get this into a container. It's a little hard to keep contained, so you might even want to put it out kind of on the edge of the yard where it can take over. And the wonderful thing about that is it's got these beautiful flowers. The insects absolutely love them, and they're really pretty. So they kind of can just look like their own flower garden. Put them in a spot where they can just go wild and you'll look like you have a beautiful flower bed. The wonderful thing about bee balm is that it is, sorry, my paper is blowing away in the breeze here. I want to make sure I cover all the things. I didn't want to forget anything. Is that it is very antimicrobial. So it is very much known to be antifungal, antiviral, and antibacterial. but it's also very soothing. So this really comes into play for things like coughs, skin, stomach cramps, things like that, where you really need to deal with calming tissue down while attacking a microbial problem that you've got. This is really good because it is very gentle. It's considered a very gentle herb, and so it can be really good for children. Really good thing to have on hand if you're a family and you have children, especially if you have children that kind of get stomach aches or they start with a cough and it just won't go away. This can be a great herb to have on hand. And again, once you plant it, you're going to have it for a long time. So it's just going to be out in your yard waiting for you to have a health problem. Oh, it's my favorite kind of health herb to have on hand. Okay, another one that is also in the mint family is lemon balm. And again, like I said earlier, all the mints and all the plants in the mint family have different actions on our body. And I've got to say, if I had to pick one herb, it might be lemon balm, because it's got so many uses. It has so many actions on the body, and yet is incredibly gentle, and it's actually very good tasting. It has a nice light lemon flavor, but lemon balm is just one of those things that children can have. You know, it just is applicable just about everywhere. But even though it's very gentle, it is actually very strong. So, you know, this is kind of hard for us to understand when we've been trained in the pharmaceutical world, that things in the herbal world can be both gentle acting, but very effective. In our minds, a pharmaceutical, the stronger it is, the more dangerous it is, right? And the harsher its action on the body. It's not that way in the herbal world, which is a wonderful thing. That means you have very many very effective herbs that are also very gentle acting on the body. They really affect the tissue or the one thing that they need to affect, but the rest of the body, it just is very harmonious with it, and it works really well. So lemon balm is one of those things. It is incredibly good for breaking fever. So if you have a fever, it can be really helpful with that. Colds and flus, coughs, it's helpful for calming nerves. In fact, I really want to highlight that because it's very helpful for calming nerves. If you feel stressed and you have a patch of lemon balm, you can literally go out and just smell it, and just the aromatherapy of kind of crushing up a few leaves in your hands and smelling it will make you feel almost instantly like, oh, it's okay. Things are okay. It's called a nervine. That action on the body is called a nervine, and it helps to soothe frayed nerves. This is wonderful, and I often say this is the best herbs for families with children because it helps moms calm down, or frazzled dads calm down and find their smile again. So make sure that you get some lemon balm in the garden. It's also good if you're having a hard time calming down and going to sleep, even if you're a small child. So lemon balm tea is just a wonderful thing, very easy to make. Okay, keep moving. Number 5, Tulsi, which is holy basil. This is a great herb for energy issues. It's called an adaptogen, which means that it's going to help your body adapt in stress. Not just your nerves like the lemon balm, but actually your physical body. So it's going to help your body to regulate its stress response, which is really important. A lot of you guys, if you have blood sugar issues, will realize that they get really exasperated when there's a stressful situation. It's because your body's doing all these different hormonal things to account for the stress and help you deal with the stress. An adaptogen like the Tulsi is going to help your body respond in a better way that helps you not have so many health problems. And so this is a really wonderful thing to have. Another thing that this Tulsi is good for, and this I think right now in the circumstance that we're in with the pandemic, a lot of people are realizing they're having a very hard time feeling focused, that they're very stressed, and that it comes out in a lack of focus, a lack of ability to concentrate. Tulsi is just this amazing herb for being able to ground you, like get your brain to focus on what it's in, make you kind of come back down and exist in your body instead of being all up in your head all over the place. I love this herb for this reason. And it really helps if you're a type A personality and you get yourself spun out like I do, and it's like, oh, I gotta do this and I gotta do this and I really want to do this thing, and can I do this and do I have time to do that? This is really going to help you just come back down and like focus and just do the thing you have on hand. It's also really good. It's a slightly antimicrobial or antibacterial, and it can be specifically good for mouths, like antibacterial in mouths. So people put Tulsi a lot in mouthwashes because it can be very good for that. It's also known as an antidepressive. If you're feeling a little bit depressed, this is going to help a lot because of that action on the brain and just helping center you and ground you. Okay, Echinacea. Of course, we all need some Echinacea. It's such a wonderful thing to grow, but something you need to know about Echinacea is you can't harvest it really until the second year. Now, you can harvest it, you're just not going to get much from it because you harvest the roots. So it's great if you don't have Ignatia growing, grow it right now, get it started, get it in your garden, get as many plants as you can manage to get in the garden, because when you harvest it, you pull out the whole plant. The leaves, the aerial parts like the leaves and the flowers and the stems are beneficial, but the roots are the most beneficial. So usually if I'm going to make an Ignatia tincture, I'm going to make it with all the parts of the plants, including the roots. Now, one of the good things about Ignatia is once it gets established, it's really going to be easy to spread by root division. So it's just one of those good things. Get a patch going this year and then try to leave it alone for a few years. If you need to harvest it off this year, get some extra because you're going to need to harvest multiple. Whereas if you let it grow up and get larger, then you probably get by with just harvesting one. Now, let's talk about uses for Ignatia. Obviously, we know it kind of as an immune response, and it is an immune stimulant. That means it's gonna make your body take this quick action against invaders. Now, it's not historically really known for its immune boosting. What it is known for and has long historical use is for anti-infection. That's why it's useful for that like quick stimulation of your immune system, is because it's actually going to fight an infection right there. So this is just a great herb for any form of infection that you have going on in your body, whether it's topical, something on your skin, or whether it's something internal. So it's really should be looked at as this infection fighter. A great example of that is taking a little piece of Ignatia root. If you have it growing in your garden, you can go out and just dig it up and just break off a tiny piece, cover it back up so the plant keeps growing, and you just chew on that. That, if you have a sore throat or a problem in your throat or your mouth, that is not only gonna numb it for a while, but you'd be amazed at how quickly it can get you over a sore throat or a cold in that way. So really, Ignatia is one of the top things that we have as a infection fighter. One of them, not the only one, but one of the top ones. Okay, another plant that's very similar in that you're going to use its roots is a plant called Elecampane. Now, I know that you don't hear about this herb very often, and I'm not entirely sure why, because it is a wonderful, wonderful herb for bronchial issues. If you have any sort of a tendency towards colds, flus, anything that gets down in your chest, you want some Elecampane growing in your garden. And again, you'll want to get it started early because you'll be harvesting the roots just like the Ignatia. And it's just a good plant. It gets very large, and just like Ignatia, it gets a beautiful flower on it. So this can just be mixed into flower beds in some places. And most people have no idea that this is a medicinal plant. So it's a really wonderful thing if you can just take your pretty flower beds up front and just fill them with these beautiful medicinal herbs. Okay, another one. This is a great herb, and it's sage, just your regular old culinary sage. Now, sage, you generally use the leaves of. And really, sage shines for mouth issues and throat issues. That's going to be one of the first herbs that I grab. If there is a cold sore, there's a sore throat, there's a tooth problem, there's I already said a sore throat, maybe a hoarse throat, all of those things really respond to sage, and it's just a great herb to have on hand. It's also whitening for your teeth. So a lot of tooth powders, herbal tooth powders, include sage to help whiten your teeth. Again, it's a great herb to have because it has multiple uses. Obviously, it has a culinary use too, and we just love using it in different dishes in the house. Okay, oh, you know, it also has some effects on correcting menopause issues for women, and it enhances oxygen in the brain and blood flow to the brain. So a lot of people use it for brain issues, memory issues, sometimes after things like a concussion or an injury to the head that might have some brain impact. People use it for that. And I haven't had to use it for those things yet, but I have it on hand in case I ever need to. Okay, the next one is oregano, and this is another one. I wouldn't want to have a garden without oregano because it's so great on pizza and everything else. But it's such a strong antimicrobial herb that I love having it on hand to blend with other things or to have as a backup. It is just known to just really, really be antimicrobial in that it's antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial. Some studies out there say because it is so high in antioxidants that it is protective of cancer, that it will protect you in some ways from cancer just with those antioxidants because it's super, super high in antioxidants. Anything, you know, a flu tea, a cold tea, anything like that is really benefited by the addition of some oregano to help fight the invaders, whatever they are, be it bacterial or viral. Now, the next thing right along with that is garlic, and garlic or onions just really should be grown in every garden, every medicinal garden, just for medicinal purposes. And of course, garlic is a super antibiotic, it's antifungal, and it's antiviral, so it really helps with a lot of issues. In that way, it can help with things like tooth abscesses, infections in the skin, viral infections like colds. Anything like that can be helped by garlic. And of course, we know that it is kind of a food source, so we can feel pretty safe about taking it. You can consume a lot of garlic pretty easily just by cooking with it, which is a great thing to do. Okay, next is horseradish. Now, even if you don't like the flavor of horseradish, it's a great thing to grow. It is something that will spread, so make sure you put it in its own little clump somewhere and let it do its thing, and it'll just sit there until you're ready. Horseradish used to have the common term of the poor man's antibiotic because once you get it in the garden, you don't have to touch it again. Like, it's just gonna be there for you waiting, so you're not gonna spend a lot of money on it. It's a very, very hardy as a plant, but it really, really shines for a few different types of infections: sinus, bronchial, and urinary tract infections. In fact, one of the major pharmaceutical drugs that we have on the market for urinary tract infections is made from a base of the compound of horseradish. So this is a very, very useful herb to have on hand. Again, even if you don't like eating it, but I think it's delicious. So I enjoy spicing up a lot of different beef dishes with it. Okay, then you want marshmallow or hollyhock. Marshmallow is the common thing that you would see that would be listed as the medicinal, but hollyhocks are very, very closely related, and they have the exact same medicinal properties as the marshmallow. And of course, they're a little bit prettier. Their flowers are a little flashier than the marshmallow flowers, which are a little small, not as showy. They're still pretty in their own way. I love having hollyhocks in my garden because they're so beautiful, but every single part of the plant is also edible. its roots, its leaves, its flowers, even if it's stems, if you could figure out how to make it palatable, maybe when they're very tender and small. But they're also very medicinal in that they're very mucilaginous, which means that they're very soothing. So whether you have a sore throat, you have a stomach that's a little upset, or you have a rash or a skin problem, something like that hollyhock or that marshmallow is going to be very, very soothing to irritated tissue. So I love having that on hand. Next for me would be yarrow. A lot of places you can forage for yarrow, and I'm really not putting the herbs that I forage in here on this list. There are some herbs that I wouldn't want to do without, and if I didn't have them locally, I would be growing them. Herbs like elderberry and mullein, and in a lot of places, yarrow grows in all the grassy areas, and in fact, it's like that here. But I also grow it in my garden because I want it quick on hand, and the reason for that is it's one of the best ways to stop bleeding that I have ever seen. It will stop bleeding from deep wounds very, very quickly, and so I like to make sure I have that on hand. But it is also famous for its use in flu mixtures because it can bring down a fever. It helps to regulate the body, induce a sweat, and thereby bring down fever. So it's just a wonderful thing to have in your yard, quick at hand for bleeding issues, but also ready for tea mixtures or tinctures for handling flus. Okay, 2 more to go. Chamomile. I wouldn't know what to do without chamomile. Chamomile is just such a great herb. It's so gentle for children. In fact, I've used it for brand new babies with upset tummies very, very successfully. Gassy tummies, anything like that. This is just a wonderful thing to grab for. Of course, it's going to help promote sleep. It's also going to promote calm, which is a really good thing. Sometimes you just need to calm people down, and a cup of chamomile tea, if brewed strongly enough, can absolutely do that. Another wonderful thing that we use chamomile for is for eye problems. A light chamomile tea washed into the eye can help with conjunctivitis. It can help with all sorts of issues and irritants of the eye, which is just a wonderful thing to have on hand. It can bring down a fever, and honestly, I have seen that work really quickly when used as an insert. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. When put it into the intestines. So for babies, sometimes they have, or young children, sometimes they can have kind of that mysterious fever. All of a sudden they're feverish, they're upset, they're hot maybe and grumpy, and they just don't feel well, maybe a lot of malaise with it, and you just can't track it down. Nobody else is sick, you're not seeing signs anywhere. You know, an amazing thing to do, it would be a chamomile insert, which is like a small enema. And that I have watched bring down a fever in 5 minutes flat, and then people get up and feel great. And I think a lot of times it helps to clear any obstructions in the bowels, and that can often be the cause of that type of kind of mysterious fever in younger children. So you can imagine, I keep chamomile in my garden. It is another annual. Often it's a self-sowing annual, but I don't mind. It's so useful that I really don't mind planting it again every year to make sure it's there. And another one, this is herb number 15 for me, that I would make sure to have in the garden is dill. Dill is a wonderful thing to grab for a quick relief of an upset stomach. And I just find that that is super, super helpful to have on hand. You can give out a little dill seed, people can chew it up, and it's amazing how fast that can help an upset stomach, particularly if your stomach's upset because of gas or bloating. Of course, it tastes great in pickles, and every garden, in my opinion, has to have dill in it so that you can have your cucumber pickles, your fermented pickles. But it's also, there have been clinical studies on it helping with depression, which is a really good thing. If you're having a problem feeling down, then some dill can amazingly bring some sunshine into your life. It can also help with painful menstruation. So you can see a lot of the herbs here, when you put them all together, they give you this kind of package that says you're gonna have a lot of things that you can treat right out of your garden with just these 15 herbs. So I really, really recommend that you get those into your garden this year if you don't already have them. You know, other herbs that are really quickly close to the list for me are things like rose, a rose plant, lavender, valerian, you know, honestly, there's a whole list of them, but those are some of my top plants. Some anise hyssop and some regular hyssop. All of those things, oh, catnip is another really good one. All those things are really good, really useful herbs to have, but if you just have to start with a few, start with some on this list because it's gonna help you cover a lot of health issues all off of just a handful of plants. Hey, you guys, I hope you're well. Take care and get some plants in the garden. See you soon. Goodbye.